Hi everyone, welcome back to Life After Neverland. My name is Karin and I'm so grateful for you guys to be here today on our Wednesday nights while we're covering our Revealing Revelation workbook study. Now today I'm going to take you on a little bit of a field trip. We got ourselves flipped backwards somehow. We're covering our workbook first and then we're working on the actual book, which I wanted to go the opposite direction. The book first and then the workbook study. But I think it's because one of the chapters in our workbook covered two chapters all in one, and so we got a little bit flipped. So in order for us to get ourselves back on track, it's so perfect because what we're going to be discussing in the book on Monday is the Lamb opening the seals, the literal judgment of the Lamb. And in that opening of the seals, you're going to see and be introduced to the four horsemen. And I do believe that these four horsemen are casting their shadows on the earth right now as we speak. And so I wanted to physically show you some of the things, events that are developing, building, casting shadows of the legitimate tribulation that is in the book of Revelation in the Bible. And in our workbook study that we would have been covering today, which we will be covering next week, we talk in depth about Revelation 6, and then we also talk about the four horsemen, what they mean, what they represent, and the type of catastrophic events that will take place once the Lamb releases these seals onto the earth itself. And so I've got a few pastors that are talking about things just like this within the past couple of days. First, I'm going to introduce you to Jimmy Evans from Tipping Point, and he's going to be talking about Israel and what's going on in Israel currently right now. Now, don't forget that Israel is the Lord's timepiece, especially for end-time prophetic events.
The playing field of Gog, Magog, 38, 39, and Ezekiel, and also Jeremiah 49 is playing out right before our eyes. For guys like us, this is an exciting time. Yeah. It's serious, it's ominous, but boy, the pieces are falling into place, and at some point, that Prime Minister of Israel is going to have to make a difficult decision, along with the defense. When you start talking about reservists and others not willing to participate because of judicial reform, that's a very precarious, dangerous time for a country that needs to be war ready and not a division within the defense industry.
Well, they had a military exercise last year, I think it's called Chariots of Fire, was all of their military branches practicing bombing Iran. And by the way, America was a part of that. They put 5 billion shekels in their budget, I think it was last year, maybe this year, to bomb Iran. And then to respond to when all the proxies of Iran go crazy after they get bombed. And so the Jeremiah 49, the Elam, and this is my opinion, but what I believe is going to happen at some point, Ezekiel 38, God says, I'm going to put a hook in your jaw. And in other words, this is going to be my decision, not your decision.
Amen.
I'm going to provoke you into doing what you're going to do. Right. It's going to be on my timetable. So the hook in the jaw was an animal hook. And so when you had a stubborn animal that wouldn't do what you want to do, you put a hook in his jaw and you drug it around like a donkey. Well, that's what this is. So God says, I'm going to put a hook in your jaw. Well, if Israel bombed Iran, it would be the most provocative thing they could possibly do. First of all, Russia has been warning America and Israel for years, if you bomb Iran, you've got us to count to. Now, there are Russian scientists all through the Iranian nuclear installations. So there could be some Russians die if they bomb Iran. So Jeremiah 49, Elam, and it says in Jeremiah 49, it'll never be inhabited again. And the dispersed of that area will go to every area of the world. Well, that's a major nuclear event. Either an accident that happens, could be, but it says that I'm going to knock the bow out of your hand. And in other words, it's a judgment, because it's a judgment against the leaders of Iran.
That's right.
So this is going to happen. Okay, so they practiced for bombing Iran. Then they practiced for defending their borders once it was over with. That's exactly what's going to happen. Hezbollah, Hamas, all of them are going to go crazy. So Syria, Russia. So you have the Psalm 83 war that Bill Salas talks about, which is a regional war where the Israelis are attacked by their regional neighbors, including Jordan, and there's a supernatural victory that happens in that. Then you have the Gog-Magog war, Ezekiel 38, 39, which is a broader regional war where you have Russia, Iran, Turkey, all the different nations that come in. This is my opinion. I think that's the order. I think it begins with Jeremiah 49. That's the hook in the jaw. I believe immediately you have the regional conflict of Psalm 83, followed by the Ezekiel 38, 39. It could happen in a matter of 2-3 days.
So y'all, this was posted within a few hours, literally several hours ago. This was posted as of today. So keep your eye on Israel if you're curious about what is going to be happening in our world. Because like I said, this is the Lord's timepiece, Israel. And when it gets closer to them talking about Jerusalem, it's even heavier. So hopefully you found this very fruitful. I think it's fascinating how Jimmy adds it all together like that. And it really puts everything into perspective as to where we are in the timepiece of prophecy. Now, the next person that I'd like for you to look at is one of my most favorite pastors named Brandon Holthaus. He's going to be talking literally about Revelation 6, which is what we're going to be discussing here in this book next week. And also, he's going to be talking about the black horse. He's not specifically going to say the black horse, but everything that he is talking about represents the black horse of these seals that we're going to be discussing next week.
Hey everybody, we're here in Mexico, and I'm going to do my prophecy update from here. I'm down in Mexico with Billy Crone and Tom Hughes to do a prophecy conference for a Calvary Chapel down in Rosarito, and so we're going to be doing that. But while I was here, I thought I would do a prophecy update while we're here in Mexico. And what I wanted to talk about is the economic collapse that's getting ready to happen if the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum has their way, and America hands over sovereignty, they crash our economy, and they go to a digital currency. I want you to take a look at the poverty here in Mexico and understand this is what the elites are trying to bring to the entire Western civilization. And as you can see in countries like Mexico, El Salvador, places in Africa, places around the world that are third world countries, there's really only the top elite that have everything, and then everyone else is poor. And that's the model that the global elites want to have for all of us. How are they doing that? Well, they're trying to collapse Western society from within. And so with that being said, we're talking about America, we're talking about Canada, we're talking about Europe, we're talking about South Africa, Australia, and places like that that have a Christian foundation, but now they're dismantling that. And along with the dismantling of Christianity, dismantling free market systems of capitalism. And understand, free market is the closest thing we can get to a biblical norm. It's not perfect, but it's the best system. But the globalists don't want that system because they want, believe it or not, to collect all the money and be in control of all the world. That's really what it comes down to. It's about power, it's about money, it's about control. They think they're in control, but actually Satan is in control of them. But anyway, so what they're doing with like ESG scores and what they're doing with a digital currency, and it's a programmable currency that's getting ready to happen in the near future, is to create an economic collapse to where everybody in Western civilization, basically the middle class will be taken out. That's the goal, is to eliminate all the middle class. Well, like we're here in Mexico, there is no middle class. It's either you have all the money or you're poor like everyone else. And so this is the model they want to bring. So imagine one day, if the rapture doesn't happen anytime soon, that the model of what you see here in Mexico and places like Nicaragua and Venezuela and those types of countries would actually come to Western civilization, because that's what they want. They don't want a middle class. They want all the money piled up at the elite on the top, and everyone else is poor. Now, you might say, well, Brandon, how do you know that? Well, we already know their intentions. We know what they want to do. But we do know what Revelation chapter 6 talks about in the tribulation. It says a quart of wheat for a day's wages, 3 quarts barley for a day's wages, and do not harm the oil and wine. And so what the economic collapse will do is will send everybody into the tribulation, obviously, and we won't be here because we'll be raptured prior to the tribulation. But the setup of the economy and where it goes, the projection is that it will take a person on planet Earth an entire day's wage of what he would make to get a plate of food. That's pretty much like it is here. We come across people on the street selling everything they could possibly sell to make just a little bit of money to survive. And basically they're surviving usually on 1 meal a day. That's what the book of Revelation says will happen globally. So when you see places that we're in here, like Mexico, this is what's coming to America. This is what's coming to Canada, Australia, some way, somehow. A lot of people say, well, I don't believe that. Well, that's too bad, because the scriptures say it will. And so if the scriptures say it will, then that's the trajectory, that's the projection, everything is going. And we're seeing that with all the things they're doing with the digital currency that's going to be introduced. Look, guys, the system of the digital currency is already being put in place. And basically all transactions will be digital. Now, they haven't introduced the central bank digital currency yet, but the framework is already set in motion. So once they go digital, they'll be able to program the digital currency. We won't be able to buy and sell as we like to. They will control what we buy. They will control what we sell. And basically our national identity will be attached to that. And that's another story for another time about the national identity. But they want to put this national identity with your digital currency and with your health records. And they're going to use that as an excuse for health reasons of why we have to have a digital identity, and then along with that tack on the digital currency. But what does that all do to everybody economically? It makes everyone poor. It makes everyone poor. So like you see here in Mexico, that's where the world is heading globally. And then it says in Revelation chapter 6 that do not harm the oil and the wine. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that it's referring to the rich. And how do I know that? Because in the ancient world, the poor people had fields and they would plant wheat or plant barley, and that's how they fed themselves. But the elites are the ones who had the orchards. They're the ones that had, the grapevines, and they had the trees and whatever they date palms and almonds, whatever they grew, olives, whatever. It was the rich landowners that owned that. So when it says in Revelation, do not harm the oil and wine, it says basically this, that the elite will still have everything. They will have all the money. And then if you move to Revelation 17 and 18, you realize that because of the abundance of trading with the whore of Babylon, the religion of Babylon, which is the one world supra religion, it could be wokeism, it could be a lot of things under the umbrella of the whore. But if you do a deal with her, as a king, as a commercial trader, then she makes you very rich. And so you see that in Revelation 17 and 18, that anyone that does a deal with her and fornicates with the whore becomes extremely wealthy, and they become that part of that elite. So with that being stated, I wanted to emphasize so you can see firsthand what the world will look like. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm praying that the rapture happens soon and we can get out of here. But the longer we're here, the more economic turmoil we're going to see. It is very possible that we could see digital currency in our lifetime. It's very possible that we could all become very poor in our lifetimes because of what they're doing economically. And so we just don't know how fast things will develop. We don't know how things will be put in place, but we do know that's their plan. And their plan is to kill us all basically economically so they can seize power, so they seize control and seize the money. And that's where it's all going. What's going to happen to America is you're going to see the biggest wealth transfer you've ever seen before. Because the system that they are trying to implement wants to redistribute our wealth here in America to other countries that they deem they want to send it to. And so basically they're taking our taxation money and giving it to foreign entities, foreign governments. And that will be the same as giving money over to like the UN or the World Health Organization or any globalist organizations that the United States government deems fit to give money to. For instance, Emmanuel Macron just came out and said that he wants a global taxation for every person to offset carbons. So basically a carbon tax for everybody globally. And of course, they're going to start with Western society, right? And when you start seeing that and realizing that, you realize that's imperialism. and that one day it's possible to live in the United States or Western society and pay a global tax to a foreign entity like the UN or something like that, the World Health Organization or the World Economic Forum or something like that. So with that being said, Macron is introducing this idea. Well, here's the funny thing about this. Funny in a strange way. Scripture predicted that the last empire that would be here until the Lord came is Rome. Rome was there when Jesus was in the first century, and Rome will be still active under the Antichrist when Jesus comes back the second time. So in regards to that, Rome's moniker, as Daniel points out, it says that Rome is different from other previous empires, was the fact that Rome practiced imperialism. Imperialism means I put my own people on the ground and I tax the people. Like, what did the Jews complain about? Roman taxation, right? They complained about Roman taxation. That's what's coming our way, is a Roman taxation from a foreign entity that you and I will pay, whether we're in Canada, Australia, it doesn't matter. You're going to pay because they're going to force you to pay. And that's going to devastate us economically. It's a huge wealth transfer that's getting ready to happen. So with that being said, what can you do? Well, I would say this. If you see the economic situation getting worse and you can see the trajectory of where it's going, my advice to you is not only prepare spiritually, but you need to prepare physically. You need to have enough food on supply. You need to have enough medicine on supply. You need to have enough water on supply. Because if that's where the world's going, and it's going to look like this, and it's in poverty, then I would think as a Christian that has wisdom is if I see a pit, I avoid it. And do everything you can, not only spiritually, but physically, to sustain yourself. And really, we know it all goes to Revelation chapter 6, a quarter wheat for a day's wages. We know that. We can't stop that. But what we can do for ourselves, our family, and our community, and our churches is prepare for that economically. And I think we need to think about what biblical wealth is in terms of what can you trade and barter in situations, what could you sell to make money, that kind of thing. You need to think through those kinds of situations. Obviously, we need to prepare spiritually, and I hope everyone out there is doing that. But I think we all need to understand that our expectations need to lower and understand that the world is heading this direction and no one's stopping it, and the Lord is allowing it. So our expectations of, I'm gonna, go into retirement and sell off into the sunset and have this glorious retirement, it's not happening. The world economically is dive bombing. It's going down, and we need to prepare for that. So with that being said, think about the things I said, think about the direction, and what would the Lord have you to do, not only prepare spiritually, but to prepare physically as well until we are called home. Now again, we know our duties to fulfill the Great Commission, to do what you're called to do, to fulfill your mission in life, and that's what our spiritual duties, our works are supposed to be doing, and we're supposed to work up to the end. We don't surrender, we don't stop, we just keep firing away until the Lord calls us home. So anyway, speaking here from Mexico, a preview of what the world will look like globally one day.
So as you can see, Brandon had so much information jam-packed in that message. I will go ahead and tag the links so that you can find Brandon, and then you can also find Jimmy Evans if needed. If you find them interesting and you like what they had to say, they have amazing information to share about what's going on in the world currently. And the information is just so much these days. You're always going to have something interesting that's going to tie you to what's going on in the Bible and what's happening in the world right now. Now, just to talk to you just a little bit about what we're going to be learning next week and how it ties into some of the things that Brandon was saying. Some of the things that you're going to learn here is that the judgments that are going to be happening when these riders are released by Jesus opening these seals, these judgments aren't local, they're universal. They spread conflict, famine, and death across the globe. And it says here, as humanity reels from these catastrophes, the governments all around the world collapse. I mean, I'm just saying, like what Brandon is saying, it's mind-blowing that we live in this day and age. It is absolutely mind-blowing. It also says here, just to give you a little bit of what you're going to be learning, the 4 riders, they mean serious business. It's not a joke. I mean, it is going to be some of the most, like it said, the word catastrophic events known to man. It also mentions that during the most recent pestilence that happened, just like mandates for masks and vaccines restricted people's access to commerce and even employment opportunities, the mark of the first rider will be required in order for people to buy and sell. And I haven't shown you all of the information that's going out there into the world, but that system, the mark of the beast system, is already being developed. So this black horse, which Brandon is actually talking about, it says it will remove all forms of peace from the earth, and that will affect businesses, governments, family units, and whatever is left of those who continue in their old religions. Business agreements will no longer be dependable. Lying will become the native language of the deal. And the third horseman will bring famine throughout the earth. And it just gets worse and worse from there. Hunger and scarcity bring out the worst in people. It says here, I mean, think about that. Desperation leads even the most mild to evil. Tying things up kind of how Brandon did, but I'm going to tell you what Amir is telling us, is that this is something that is eye-opening. This is something that provides a fire under your butt, so to speak. That's me speaking. But what Amir says is, you may wonder how that these events will affect you. And as a church, we're going to be in heaven. That's the most beautiful, amazing thing. And if you're not already a believer in the Lord, there's no time like the present. Give your heart to the Lord and accept him into your life and ask for forgiveness. You can escape all of this tragedy. But I do believe that the Lord is calling us now to spread the word to others, because this world is going to become even more dangerous than what we're already seeing. And if it's weighing on your heart right now, the way that the world is, and maybe you are like me and you wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and you think about the things that are going on in the world, and it makes you feel a bit helpless. This is the reason why I'm doing this study, because the book of Revelation is actually hopeful. Okay, and so hopefully you guys will join in with me and learn about the pieces of this book that are hopeful for the future for a believer. You don't have to fear, just be prepared. Use discernment, learn what the Lord is trying to tell you about the times that we live in, and you will be just fine. Stick together with other Christians. Provide comfort and encouragement for those that you love. Share the gospel. And the best way to do that is find people like Brandon, Jimmy Evans, and many others. You can share things with them that way if you don't know how to find the words. So with that being said, you guys, thank you again for joining me today. We went on our little field trip. Hope you learned a few things. And I will see you Monday night at 7 p.m. where we will cover our book study for the Lamb opening up the seals. And then, of course, Wednesday night, we'll get back on track. And that same study, the Lamb opening the seals, we're going to actually dive in and answer some questions, learn more about these riders on these horses. What are they going to do to this world? And what is this world going to look like? And what does that mean for the church? So thank you again, you guys. I appreciate you. Hang out with me a little bit longer. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so I can communicate with you if anything happens, or if I want to just share anything with you. All right? God bless you. Until next time. Thanks.